Well, good morning, and everyone, as we head into European trade on Tuesday, the 23rd of January, and we'll have a look across markets. We'll see what's going on, and really kind of two major headlines or two major events, we'll say, over the course of the Asian session. Bank of Japan out, no change in monetary policy, kept the same stance on interest rates, kept the same stance on their bond purchasing. No change there, which is to be expected. Nobody expected anything different, but market participants do believe that they will exit their negative interest rates at some point over the course of this year, dial back their bond buying at some point this year. And the central bank official, Governor Ueda, they suggest that is likely to come. They are likely to exit negative interest rates at some point, and once they do exit negative interest rates, they are likely to raise interest rates further. Now, that's not something that you see too often from a Bank of Japan official. That's what we got today. So clearly, there are discussions on exiting negative interest rates, going into positive interest rates, and raising them past zero. So a bit of positivity in the Japanese yen post that, and that's probably likely to be supported in the short term. Another comment suggesting that they've exited their disinflationary phase of their economy, and now they do actually have inflation, which they have not had for a long time, kind of the same like the time I've been alive. So definitely a bit of a different scenario these days in Japan. Do they look at hiking interest rates, or when do they look at hiking interest rates? That's the question for markets to answer. A lot of market participants think it may come around April time, but ultimately we do need to wait for some further guidance from the central bank as to when that will happen, as I can't imagine that will just be a random decision. They will make it an interest rate decision. They will probably communicate that to markets at some point before that. China as well weighing up a stimulus measures, $278 billion to be pumped into capital markets. So they say Chinese yuan, certainly the currency, enjoying that. Chinese assets will enjoy that if they go and do just that. I mean, they've made a bunch of different kind of smaller stimulus measures to help the real estate sector, help industrial production, to help they've removed some curbs on tech companies throughout the country, and they've pumped money into capital markets before, and kind of smaller measures. But they say stock market rescue package, China market rescue talks lift yuan, and $278 billion, which is about 2 trillion Chinese yuan, is a sizable amount of money to pump into capital markets. And if they do decide to go ahead with that, surely that is a positive for Chinese related assets, and hopefully helps kickstart their economy, which will spill over into global trade. Apart from that, you can see what markets doing across the board. You can see the US equity futures pretty mixed. European equity futures up slightly. Asia Pacific equity futures not doing too much, but your Hang Seng is up nearly 3% off the back of what we have just talked about. Solid upside yesterday in gold, in oil, should I say. Up a little bit again today, but nothing too much. Yields slightly higher, yields lower yesterday, but the higher yesterday. Higher obviously being helped along with Japanese bond yields as well, enjoying what or pushing higher off the back of what Governor Ueda has said. US dollar, slight bit of downside. Aussie Kiwi up, a bit of kind of risk on trading if you look at that sort of stuff, but it's not exactly massive moves across the board. The Aussie's up a bit, but not really that much. US dollar negative across the board, though. It's something we were looking at in yesterday's session. If you watched the video yesterday, we were looking at a bit of stock index upside for the week, and the US dollar down over the course of this week, and that's kind of proven correct, certainly in terms of today's session so far. And you can see your Aussie, Kiwi, Euro and Sterling pushing higher in the overnight. You can see dollar Swiss, dollar CAD, dollar yen also pushing lower overnight, which is just US dollar weakness across the board. You can see equity markets, certainly European equities. You can see the DAX, the Euro stocks and the FTSE all pushing higher overnight. Russell continues to push higher. The S&P, the Dow Jones and Nasdaq kind of just going sideways in a very tight range, not doing too much, but we'll see how they want to wake up a bit. We'll see if they wake up a bit once the European session gets going. US bond yields, 10-year yield, 2-year yield popping slightly higher off the back of those comments from Ueda, but ultimately they're not doing too much at the moment. So let's wait and see how they react. But the fact that they've popped higher, you'll see much strength in the US dollar, I think is a bit of an interesting one, but we will cross that bridge a little bit later on once markets markets get going a bit. What am I clicking here this week? You see Bank of Japan, we were talking about earlier on. Not much to see there. I mean, at some point, Japanese yen longs will be a good idea. A little bit later on in the year, whenever that point comes, we will obviously be sure to update. Economic data pretty light over the course of today. Not much for us really to see. You know, you got some trade balance figures out of Japan 10 to 12 tonight, but ultimately tomorrow will be a bit of the start of kind of a few more interesting days. You got the Bank of Canada tomorrow, some PMIs from the US, PMIs from across Europe. As I said, the Bank of Canada then into the ECB on Thursday, then into PCE on Friday from the US. So pretty busy end to the week. Bank of Canada tomorrow. We'll update further on that, or a little bit more on that in the in tomorrow morning's video. Apart from that, though, economic calendar pretty light. You know, is this going to be a tricky day of trade as we await some kind of strong economic data prints a little bit later on the week? Potentially, stock markets aren't really sure what they want to do, but US dollar weakness is kind of how I'm playing it this week. So does that mean you go piling in? Absolutely not. But I do think dollar yen shorts look a decent bet over the course of today. I mean, they've already moved. They popped higher off the back of the actual interest rate decision. Hit 148.50, then went down to 147. You know, is this a rally you can sell back into? Maybe on an intraday time frame, you can get down that sort of a time frame and try and navigate that for yourself. But Japanese yen strength, I probably wouldn't back against it in today's session anyway. Dollar yen shorts might be worth a punt. But yeah, bias stays the same as the video yesterday. If you watched that, that's kind of how I'm thinking for this week. Nothing's changed since then, so we'll continue to go with that.